A little girl sat silently in the courtroom, rehearsed and controlled. However, one secret signal to a police dog prompted him to charge forward, halting the court proceedings. What transpired next shocked the judge and altered everything. Before we delve into today's story, please leave a comment below indicating where in the world you're watching from. And if you enjoy compelling police dog stories such as this one, please click that subscribe button. You won't want to miss future episodes. A stark light from the fluorescent fixtures in Courtroom 7B illuminated the gleaming oak and the serious expressions of those present at the downtown Chicago courthouse. Judge Eleanor Wilson's chambers had witnessed numerous custody disputes, yet this particular case created a palpable sense of tension. Officer Ryan Mitchell straightened his uniform collar, his steel blue eyes observing the room with a practiced and observant gaze. Next to him, Apollo, his 4-year-old German Shepherd partner, remained perfectly still, his dark coat reflecting the light of the courtroom. "All rise," announced the bailiff, as the Honorable Judge Eleanor Wilson took her place to preside over the case of Anderson versus Ellis. Officer Mitchell observed Apollo's ears move slightly forward, a subtle change that would likely go unnoticed by others. After 3 years working together in Chicago's K-9 unit, Mitchell had become adept at recognizing every nuance in Apollo's body language. Something had piqued the dog's interest. Mitchell followed Apollo's gaze to a small figure seated in the front row. 8-year-old Lily Anderson sat with impeccable posture, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes focused on the worn tile floor. Her navy dress and white cardigan appeared overly formal for a child of her age. Her brown hair was pulled back in a tight bun, accentuating the paleness of her face. While many children would be restless during court proceedings, she remained strikingly still. Beside her sat Claire Anderson, her mother, whose tired eyes and chewed fingernails revealed weeks of sleeplessness. Across from them was Marcus Ellis, a Chicago business mogul, stepfather of 3 years, and projecting an image of calm assurance in his well-fitted charcoal suit. His hand rested deliberately on the back of Lily's chair. Apollo stiffened a little, a shift so slight that only Mitchell observed it. The dog's training was flawless. He had remained composed during hostage negotiations, drug busts, and active shooter scenarios. However, something about this sterile courtroom or someone present had roused his vigilance. "Today we continue the custody hearing for Lily Anderson," Judge Wilson announced, her voice sharp against the quiet whispers. "I remind everyone that my sole concern is the welfare of the child." 21 days prior, Mitchell was conducting Apollo's routine weekly tracking drills at Jefferson Park. The crisp autumn morning air held the fragrance of moist soil and dropped leaves as Apollo navigated the obstacle course, his strong muscles moving with graceful accuracy. "That's it, boy," Mitchell had said as Apollo swiftly found the concealed training aid in a personal best time. "Perfect." Colleagues frequently quipped that Mitchell seemed to comprehend dogs more effectively than people. At the age of 34, following 12 years in law enforcement and the last 3 in the K-9 unit, he had earned a reputation for quiet effectiveness instead of engaging in professional socializing. His divorce 2 years prior had only strengthened his dedication to his work and to Apollo. On that Tuesday, they were concluding training exercises when the dispatch arrived, a standard welfare check on a child, prompted by a teacher's observation of concerning behavior changes, a situation that would not usually necessitate a K-9 unit. They were, however, the nearest to the residence, a luxurious townhouse in Lincoln Park. Claire Anderson opened the door, appearing initially surprised by the police dog until Mitchell clarified that Apollo was his partner. "He's completely harmless to civilians, ma'am," he reassured her as they entered a home that seemed like it could have appeared in an architectural publication. It was then that he first encountered Lily, cautiously observing from behind the staircase, her small face illuminating at the sight of Apollo despite her mother's apparent distress. "Lily has been experiencing difficulties recently," Claire had confided, speaking quietly. Her teacher had noted that she's become withdrawn at school, no longer participating as she once did. Mitchell had watched as Lily approached Apollo with a caution that appeared rooted in both fascination and fear. What he found remarkable was Apollo's reaction. The dog was focused intently on the child, his posture alert as it usually was when working. "Has anything changed at home recently?" Mitchell had asked. observing how Lily flinched at a sound from upstairs. Marcus is under a lot of pressure. Regarding his business, we all are. Claire responded a bit too quickly. He's a good provider. We're very fortunate. When Marcus Ellis came out of his office a few minutes later, his handshake was firm, his smile practiced. Officer, I understand your concern, but I want to assure you that everything is well here. Lily is simply adjusting to her new school. Doesn't that right, Princess? Lily had nodded obediently. However, Apollo's subtle growl was audible only to Mitchell's trained ear. Back at the precinct, Mitchell couldn't shake his unease about the Anderson Ellis home visit. Apollo's behavior had been unusual enough to warrant a note in his report, something he rarely needed to do with his meticulously trained partner. The following morning, Mitchell requested the case file pertaining to the family. An initial review revealed nothing overtly suspicious. Marcus Ellis possessed a clean record, serving as CEO of Ellis Development and acting as a significant philanthropist with connections to many of Chicago's prominent figures. Claire Anderson Ellis had discontinued her career following her marriage to Ellis. And Lily, a student previously achieving straight A grades, had not previously raised any concerns among teachers or counselors. Officer Mitchell was joined by Dr. Rebecca Torres, the department's child psychologist, at his desk. I noticed your flag regarding the Anderson Ellis welfare check. I'd like to understand what led to it. During our meeting, Mitchell detailed Apollo's reactions and the nuanced interactions he observed. Torres explained that children who experience controlling environments often develop particular coping strategies. The extreme stillness you mentioned, the scripted responses, can be signs of that, although not conclusive proof. It warrants further consideration. The dog's behavior is also noteworthy. These animals are capable of detecting stress hormones, subtle facial expressions, and even shifts in breathing that humans might not notice. Over the subsequent 2 weeks, Mitchell scheduled multiple follow-up appointments at the Anderson residence. The observations remained the same. Apollo's atypical focus on Lily, the child's slight decrease in anxiety near the dog, and Marcus Ellis's growing frustration with the police investigations. On one occasion when Ellis was not present, Mitchell noted Lily's inherent connection with Apollo. He's a very special dog, Mitchell said as she cautiously stroked Apollo's fur. He had been trained to understand specific signals, methods of communication without verbal interaction. Lily's eyes widened. Like secret codes? Mitchell confirmed. Exactly like that. Apollo knows dozens of commands that appear as typical movements to everyone else. Something in Lily's expression changed, a glimmer of interest that seemed to break through her carefully constructed demeanor. Following that visit, Mitchell spoke with his sergeant regarding his increasing worries. Sergeant Diaz told him that Ellis had submitted a formal complaint concerning Mitchell's repeated visits and had expedited the custody hearing. Ellis is requesting full custody of Lily, alleging Claire is emotionally unstable. That's a classic example of isolation tactics, Mitchell stated. I understand that, and you know that, Diaz replied. However, Ellis has relationships with the police commissioner and many judges in Cook County. Relying solely on a dog's actions and personal feelings isn't enough. 2 days prior to the custody hearing, Mitchell made a choice that could possibly impact his career. He planned to meet Claire and Lily at a small park close to their home, bringing Apollo as part of a community dog demonstration. As Claire was talking with another parent, Mitchell positioned himself next to Lily on a quiet bench. Lily, do you recall when I mentioned that Apollo responds to specific cues? He inquired, maintaining a relaxed tone as the child stroked the German shepherd. She responded affirmatively, her gaze frequently shifting to her mother, ensuring they weren't being observed. I'm going to show you a special one, Mitchell said, using a discreet gesture, his fingers briefly touching and then parting, resembling the smoothing of an unseen sheet. When Apollo witnesses this, he understands that immediate assistance is required. Lily rehearsed the gesture multiple times. Her small fingers mirrored Mitchell's actions. Apollo observed closely, his training surfacing as he detected a new directive being set. This is just between us, Mitchell clarified. Sometimes adults struggle to grasp when children require assistance. But Apollo consistently understands. What occurs when he observes it? Lily inquired, her voice a soft whisper. He responds to safeguard whoever initiates the signal. It is his most vital responsibility. A subtle change crossed the child's face, a brief spark of hope instantly concealed by a familiar composure. Her gaze drifted toward the playground. Marcus doesn't like dogs, she observed. Lily, Mitchell said with deliberate care, if you ever feel scared or unsafe, this signal works anywhere. Apollo can see it, even in places where people aren't supposed to talk, like court. The question highlighted the depth of her understanding of her circumstances, surpassing what would be expected of an 8-year-old. As Mitchell confirmed, his heart felt burdened by the possibility of overstepping professional limits. The morning of the custody hearing dawned with a palpable tension. Judge Eleanor Wilson was well known, 23 years on the bench had established her as a figure of both reverence and apprehension within Chicago's legal community. Mitchell was seated in the gallery's second row, Apollo lying at his feet in a full-service harness. His arrival initially drew attention, but Mitchell possessed the necessary authorization. K-9 officers were not obligated to be separated from their partners during testimony. Claire Anderson was seated next to her attorney, Janet Kaplan, a skilled but visibly less experienced family law specialist. The difference in legal representation was striking. Ellis's team presented matching leather portfolios, while Kaplan carried a slightly worn briefcase. Marcus Ellis entered the room with the air of someone accustomed to authority, acknowledging Judge Wilson with a comfortable nod. Mitchell observed how multiple court personnel adjusted their posture as he walked by, a quiet indication of respect afforded to those of prominence. Ellis paused to greet an individual in the gallery, a man Mitchell identified as an aide to a police commissioner. Ellis's lead attorney, Lawrence Henderson, commenced their presentation. The account he delivered was carefully constructed. Claire Anderson, portraying a mother struggling with emotional instability, fabricated worries regarding her daughter to create distance between them and a caring stepfather. Images of family vacations, school events, and charitable galas were displayed on a presentation screen, depicting what appeared to be a flawless modern family. Mrs. Anderson Ellis's behavior has escalated into heightened paranoia, Henderson reported, leading to several unwarranted police welfare checks that have deeply affected the child. Claire's testimony followed, her voice becoming more even as she detailed the alterations in Lily's behavior since Marcus had exerted greater control. She ceased discussing her daily activities and stopped entertaining friends. She adheres to guidelines I did not establish. Henderson's cross-examination was precise. Isn't it true, Mrs. Ellis, that you've received treatment for anxiety and tend to transfer your anxieties onto your daughter? The courtroom felt charged with unstated accusations by the time Mitchell was asked to testify. He moved towards the witness stand, Apollo keeping a steady stance nearby. Mitchell detailed only the information recorded in official reports, Lily's behavior, the conditions at home, and the interactions he observed. He omitted any discussion of Apollo's responses or his personal doubts, anticipating immediate objections based on them being considered speculation. Henderson's cross-examination unfolded precisely as Mitchell had foreseen, suggesting that Mitchell had exceeded his authority and shown prejudice against Marcus Ellis. Throughout the proceedings, Apollo remained motionless beside the witness stand, although Mitchell sensed the slight tightness in his partner's posture. As Mitchell concluded his questioning, Judge Wilson declared, "I'd like to speak with Lily Anderson in my chambers. Parents, attorneys may observe, but parents will remain here." Requests from the judge weren't uncommon in contentious custody disputes, but Mitchell observed how Ellis subtly leaned forward, his hand tightening on the table's edge. For the first time, a fissure emerged in his seemingly flawless demeanor. Judge Wilson's chambers provided a noticeable difference from the official courtroom, featuring bookshelves filled with legal references and a relaxed seating space intended to comfort children. A court reporter was situated quietly in the corner, while the attorneys arranged themselves near the wall. Peeking through a slightly ajar door, Mitchell observed Lily settled in a large leather chair facing the judge. Apollo stayed with Mitchell in the courtroom, both having a visible view into the chambers via the doorway. The dog's focus hadn't shifted. His dark eyes were intently fixed on Lily, a gaze that would have worried Mitchell under different conditions. "Lily, do you know why we are all here today?" Judge Wilson inquired, her usually firm voice gentled. The child responded, her answer sounding practiced even from afar, because her mom and Marcus were fighting about her. That's right, and my job is to figure out what's best for you. She needed Lily to tell her the truth about how things were at home. Can you do that? Lily nodded, her hands tightly clasped in her lap. Do you feel safe at home with your mom and Marcus? Yes, Your Honor. The words came quickly, but Mitchell noticed the slight tremble in Lily's shoulders. Judge Wilson proceeded with typical inquiries regarding school, daily life at home, and Lily's relationships with both parents. Lily's responses were consistently courteous and well-mannered, but they grew increasingly stiff and rehearsed. Lily, has anyone instructed you on what to say to me today? The judge asked pointedly. The child's gaze shifted briefly toward Ellis's attorney before returning to her lap. No, Your Honor. The judge pressed, are you certain? It's permissible to tell me if someone has. The room fell silent. Mitchell sensed Apollo's muscles tightening next to him. Marcus instructed me to convey my happiness, Lily finally whispered. He stated that unfavorable consequences would befall Mom if I failed to do so. Ellis's attorney approached. Your Honor, I object, he began. Judge Wilson halted him with a raised hand. Mr. Henderson, you are present solely as an observer. Save your objections for the courtroom, she stated. What sort of bad things? Judge Wilson inquired softly. The child's eyes filled with tears. Before she could respond, Marcus Ellis abruptly entered the courtroom, forcing open the main chamber door and appearing visibly angry. This is outrageous. She's being manipulated. Court officials attempted to restrain him, but Ellis was already advancing towards the chambers. In that crucial moment, Mitchell noticed something. Lily's small hand performed the quiet gesture they had rehearsed, her fingers briefly touching and then parting in a movement so delicate it would have been overlooked by anyone not intently observing. Apollo's response was immediate. Even before Mitchell could give a spoken instruction, the German shepherd sprang forward with forceful accuracy, covering the space between them and the chambers in seconds. As court officers reached for their weapons, the gallery burst with shocked cries, and Judge Wilson stood up. Order, she declared, her powerful voice silencing the room. Everyone froze except Apollo, who moved past the bailiff and stood directly before Lily's chair, creating a shield between her and the doorway. Mitchell hurried forward. Apollo, hold. He gave the order, even though the dog had already adopted a measured, protective posture instead of a threatening one. Precisely as his training instructed for the signal Lily had provided, the courtroom erupted into disorder. Alice was held back by court officers, yelling about that dangerous animal. His lawyers requested Apollo's prompt removal. Claire rose, her expression a mixture of bewilderment and optimism. Everyone will be silent. Judge Wilson's voice pierced the commotion. Officer Mitchell, please describe the events that occurred. Mitchell stood at attention, keenly aware of the precariousness of his career. Your Honor, Apollo responded to a distress signal. What distress signal? The judge inquired. Before Mitchell could respond, Lily spoke, her voice gaining strength as she moved to stand beside Apollo, one hand resting on his back. I did it. I gave him the secret signal. The courtroom became silent, all eyes fixed on the small girl who appeared to have suddenly found her voice. Marcus hurts me, she continued, the words flowing out as if a barrier had given way. He tells me no one will believe me because he is influential. He compels me to rehearse what to say to teachers and doctors. He also hurts Mom when she attempts to intervene. Apollo remained motionless next to her, his training enabling him to maintain a protective stance while remaining non-aggressive, acting as a living barrier between Lily and the man she feared. Judge Wilson's expression changed from shock to firm determination. Officer Mitchell, please proceed to the bench with your K-9. Bailiff, secure Mr. Ellis. Court reporter, please ensure every word is transcribed. Your Honor, I can explain, Mitchell began, standing before Judge Wilson with Apollo and Lily beside him. You instructed my K-9 partner to respond to a signal from Lily, a nonverbal distress signal that she could use if she felt threatened or unsafe. I concede it was an unusual course of action, Judge Wilson concluded, her intense focus assessing him. How long had you been preparing for this, Officer Mitchell? 3 days, Your Honor, Mitchell replied, following several welfare visits where Apollo and I both noted troubling behaviors. The judge then shifted her gaze to Lily, who remained with one hand gently on Apollo's back. Lily, did Officer Mitchell instruct you to make these statements concerning your stepfather? No, ma'am, Lily responded, her voice quiet but more distinct than previously. He simply demonstrated how to contact Apollo should I feel frightened. He stated Apollo would comprehend even if adults did not. And what prompted your fear today? The judge inquired. Lily briefly looked toward Ellis, whose eyes glowed with intense anger. Because Marcus indicated that if I shared what occurs at home, he would cause Mom to disappear permanently. He stated that no one would believe me, given his familiarity with the judges and police chiefs. Ellis's lead attorney moved forward. Your Honor, these are demonstrably false accusations. The officer has undermined his K-9's training to influence a child into M. You'll receive no concessions in my courtroom, Mr. Henderson. Judge Wilson abruptly interrupted him. Accompanied by Apollo, Lily's statements flowed more easily. She recounted a pattern of deliberate psychological abuse, including being confined to her room for errors, such as toys left out, and being compelled to recite pre-prepared responses before school daily, along with witnessing Marcus threaten her mother while believing she was asleep. He maintains a dedicated room in the basement for disciplinary actions. She shared, her voice barely audible, noting it has a timer on the door. She stated that if she cried or made noise, he would extend the duration. Claire covered her mouth, her face displaying visible shock. The renovation project, she murmured. He said it was a wine cellar. I've never even seen it finished. Ellis moved forward again, despite the restraining hands. This is absurd. The dog charged at me. This entire proceeding is compromised. Judge Wilson had heard enough. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Ellis to the holding area. I'm issuing an immediate emergency protective order for both Lily and Claire Anderson. As Ellis was removed, still protesting, Judge Wilson turned to Mitchell. Officer, although your procedures were unusual, they seem justified. I request that Apollo's training records and a complete report on the signal system you implemented be submitted to this court by tomorrow. Furthermore, she continued, speaking to the entire court, I am ordering an immediate search of the Ellis residence, particularly the basement area Lily described, and a thorough investigation into these allegations. Mitchell stepped forward. Your Honor, with your permission, Apollo and I would like to help with that search. His training in identifying signs of distress could prove beneficial. Judge Wilson indicated her agreement. Court reporter, please record that I am formally requesting the presence of Officer Mitchell and K-9 Apollo to carry out the search warrant. The judge then looked directly at Lily, her serious expression becoming gentler. Lily, what Apollo did today demonstrated great courage, and so did you. Lily smiled for the first time since Mitchell had known her. It was a real smile that changed her face, moving it from the appearance of a frightened child to one showing the beginning of restored confidence. As Mitchell and Apollo exited the courtroom, they discovered the hallway in a managed state of disorder. Ellis was undergoing processing for transfer to holding, his costly suit seeming out of place with the handcuffs on his wrists. Noticing Mitchell and Apollo, his calm demeanor shattered entirely. You'll regret this, he hissed. Do you have any idea who I am? Who my friends are? Mitchell maintained Apollo in a perfect heel position, the dog's disciplined composure sharply contrasting with Ellis's loss of control. Mr. Ellis, I suggest you reserve your comments for your lawyer. Ellis unexpectedly strained against the officer's hold. His face twisted. That dog should be put down. And you? Apollo remained balanced, showing no reaction to the sudden movement, reinforcing his remarkable training. One of the officers noted calmly that the charges now included threatening a police officer. Detective Sophia Reyes approached Mitchell, an experienced investigator with Chicago PD's Special Victims Unit. She had been called in immediately following Judge Wilson's orders. That's something else, Mitchell, she said, nodding toward Apollo. Judge Wilson has already signed the search warrant for Ellis's home. We move in 30 minutes. A search of the Ellis residence confirmed Lily's account. A soundproofed room in the basement, presented as a wine cellar but featuring a complex locking system and timer. CSI technicians meticulously documented all details, including the camera surveillance system and the small cot located in the corner. He recorded it all, Reyes stated softly, showing Mitchell a concealed panel containing digital storage devices. The payments were likely his insurance, intended to ensure the child and mother cooperated. Now, this serves as evidence that will likely result in a lengthy prison sentence for him. Apollo systematically examined the area, identifying specific locations that subsequently yielded further evidence, including a child's drawings concealed beneath the cot, which caused even the experienced investigators to become silent. At the courthouse, Claire and Lily waited in a secure conference room, accompanied by Dr. Torres. Upon Mitchell and Apollo's return, Lily rushed to the dog, embracing him with a trust that was unmistakable. "Thank you," Claire said to Mitchell, her voice calm for the first time since he'd met her, "for believing what I couldn't even fully see." "Apollo deserves the credit," Mitchell replied. He knew something was wrong from that first day. Dr. Torres arrived, holding a notepad. "Judge Wilson has prioritized this case significantly. Ellis's bail hearing is already set, but considering the evidence gathered today and his conduct in court, it is improbable he will be released on bail." Detective Reyes shared an update. Ellis's known contacts are attempting to separate themselves from the situation. 2 individuals have already provided accounts detailing things they observed. Judge Wilson entered the conference room, having removed her judicial robes and opting for a cardigan and slacks. She lowered herself to Lily's level. She stated softly, "What you did today has assisted us in understanding the situation. You demonstrated considerable bravery." Lily glanced at the judge. "Apollo helped me be brave." Wilson offered a smile, then addressed Mitchell. "Officer, the court will be formally recognizing both you and Apollo. Your actions, though unorthodox, reflected the most important values of safeguarding and assistance." Wilson added that he would be seeking advice from child advocacy specialists regarding the establishment of a structured canine assistance program to support children experiencing trauma within the court system. The events observed today indicate potential avenues that warrant thorough investigation. As the judge left the room, Mitchell approached Apollo, gently stroking the dog's smooth fur. What started as a standard welfare check had evolved into a situation that could potentially alter how the legal system safeguards its most vulnerable individuals. Claire moved forward, with Lily at her side. "Officer Mitchell," the doctor stated, "we should aim to create consistent routines in the coming days." Lily inquired, "Is it possible for Apollo to come visit sometime?" Lily concluded, her voice more assertive than Mitchell had ever observed it. Mitchell smiled. "Apollo and I would be delighted. He demonstrates considerable skill with board games, though he consistently requests to be the dog piece in Monopoly." This light-hearted remark elicited the second authentic smile observed from Lily, a valuable indication of a child starting the gradual return to a typical childhood. "Have you ever observed the remarkable intuition of a service animal?" Apollo's story serves as a reminder that, at times, animals can perceive things that humans may overlook, identifying emotions, fears, and needs that are unexpressed. They frequently demonstrate a greater understanding of nonverbal cues and behavioral alterations than we possess. What indicators do you believe animals notice that humans overlook? Research indicates dogs can identify changes in our bodily chemistry, microexpressions, and even minor adjustments in our breathing. Apollo's training amplified these innate talents, yet numerous pet owners share comparable experiences of their animals sensing distress, illness, or danger prior to its obviousness. Could you rely on a canine officer's judgment in a courtroom setting? Apollo's unusual behavior in Judge Wilson's courtroom sparks interesting discussions about potentially integrating these remarkable animals further into our justice system, particularly when safeguarding vulnerable witnesses who may struggle to communicate openly. Please share your opinions and experiences in the comments. Have you ever observed an animal perceive something before people noticed? We'd be interested in reading your stories. If you found Apollo and Officer Mitchell's story moving, please subscribe and enable notifications to ensure you don't miss future stories of incredible canine heroes. Our channel features extraordinary accounts of police dogs going above and beyond. Share this video with friends and family who appreciate the remarkable bond between handlers and their canine partners. For more incredible stories of loyal heroes who serve and protect, please watch our previous videos, which are appearing on your screen now. Remember, sometimes the most powerful voice for justice doesn't speak at all. It barks. The police dog halted abruptly in the dark alley, refusing to proceed. His handler had never observed him behaving in this manner, but when backup arrived and revealed the truth, every officer was left shaken. Here's what transpired. Now, before we delve into today's story, please leave a comment below indicating where in the world you're watching from. And if you enjoy remarkable police dog stories like this one, be sure to click that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. A gentle rain fell across Portland's Northwest District, covering the cobblestone streets in a glistening sheen that reflected the faint light of century-old street lamps. Officer Michael Reeves tugged at the collar of his police raincoat, the department patch on his shoulder dampened by the continuous drizzle. Alongside him, Axel, his 4-year partner and German Shepherd K9 officer, moved quietly through the night, his black and tan coat appearing unaffected by the weather. "Quiet night, huh, buddy?" Michael said, observing as Axel's ears twitched, continuously registering the urban soundscape of faraway traffic, the infrequent late-night pedestrian, and the rustle of rain against brick walls. 8 years on the force had shown Michael that beauty frequently masked danger, particularly in the twisting alleys located between Portland's celebrated buildings. Axel proceeded with military precision, each step calculated yet smooth, his training apparent in every motion. The shepherd's amber eyes surveyed their surroundings with a keen intelligence that occasionally made Michael question just how much his partner truly understood. K9-5, this is dispatch. We've got reports of suspicious activity near Westmore and Caldwell. The caller mentioned unusual noises from the historic district, possibly from behind the old Harrington building. Michael activated his radio. Dispatch, K9-5 responding. We are 2 blocks away. We will investigate. Probably just the usual, Michael said to Axel, his voice low. Someone taking shelter from the rain. Maybe some teenagers thinking they found a good spot to hang out. Portland's historic district was full of recessed doorways and forgotten maintenance alleys that regularly attracted both the homeless and thrill-seeking youths. As they neared the Harrington building, a restored brick structure dating back to the 1890s, Michael directed his flashlight beam across the building's exterior. "Let's check the back," he proposed, turning towards the service alley located behind the row of historic buildings. At that moment, everything shifted. Axel's demeanor instantly changed. The easy, assured walk disappeared, superseded by tense readiness. His ears moved forward, his tail became straight, and every muscle in his strong body tightened noticeably under his damp fur. Michael had observed his partner signaling the presence of suspects, drugs, and weapons before, but this felt unusual. There was no sign of eagerness or the expectation that usually came with a positive discovery. "What is it, boy?" Michael asked, quickly checking their surroundings for danger. Axel made no barking or whining sounds. He remained focused on the alley entrance, a quiet growl vibrating in his chest. The shepherd's actions caused a wave of unease to ripple through Michael, unrelated to the rain wetting his collar. Dispatch K9-5. Michael spoke into his radio, the tightness in his voice evident. "We're at the alley off Westmore, behind the Harrington building. Something feels amiss. Axel is displaying atypical behavior, requesting another unit to help investigate the situation." The usually reliable dog took a cautious step backward, leaning against Michael's leg, a behavior he'd never displayed previously. In 4 years of confronting armed suspects, entering burning buildings, and traversing disaster scenes, Michael had never witnessed his partner show fear. The alley extended before them, resembling a tight canyon, bordered by the imposing brick walls of buildings erected in a different century. Metal fire escapes angled downwards along the building's walls, their stairs reflecting the faint light with a wet sheen. Michael's flashlight appeared to be absorbed by the surrounding darkness, failing to cut through it. "Axel, move forward," Michael ordered, his voice steady despite his rising apprehension. For the initial time in their collaboration, Axel paused before responding to a direct instruction. The shepherd advanced 2 hesitant steps into the alley, then halted abruptly, exhibiting not the watchful readiness of a dog sensing drugs or bombs, nor the defensive posture of one confronting danger. This was a wholly different reaction. Axel remained still, his form tense, his gaze fixed on something in the distance that Michael couldn't perceive. Michael recalled their training sessions at the academy. The instructor's words resonated in his thoughts. Dogs possess an ability to perceive not only what exists but also what is amiss, demonstrating a perceptive capacity that surpasses human comprehension. Should your K9 partner display behavior you have not previously observed, be vigilant. It could potentially save your life. Dispatch requesting immediate backup at my location. K9 is exhibiting unprecedented behavior. Something's very wrong here. Copy that. K95. Units 12 and 17 are responding. ETA 4 minutes. The sound of boots impacting puddles signaled the arrival of backup. Raindrops clung to officers Layla Torres and Keith Mercer as they stepped forward, their tactical flashlights illuminating the gloom. What's the situation, Reeves? Torres inquired, her hand naturally positioned on her holstered weapon as she surveyed the alley. It's Axel, Michael responded, indicating his motionless partner. We were answering the suspicious activity report when he simply halted. He won't advance, he won't go back. I've never witnessed him behaving this way. Mercer's eyebrows lifted in disbelief. We hurried here because your dog became startled? Could have been anything, another animal, an unusual odor. It's impossible to say. That's the point, Michael stated directly. Axel doesn't become startled. Not by animals, not by suspects, not by anything we've seen before. This is unlike anything we've experienced. The officers systematically searched the accessible area of the alley, checking behind dumpsters and inspecting doorways. Nothing apparent, Torres said after a few minutes. There were no indications of forced entry, no people present, and no apparent dangers. Almost immediately after, Axel emitted a quiet whine, a sound so unusual that the three officers became alert. The shepherd subtly changed his position, still hesitant to move forward, but now actively opposing Michael's mild attempts to guide him back to the road. We ought to report this as a false alarm, Mercer proposed, but he seemed unsure. Perhaps we should have Axel examined. Michael remained steadfast. We need to investigate further. Axel is never incorrect, merely sometimes anticipating what we comprehend. Could we have thermal imaging deployed here? The thermal imaging unit was received by Officer Dawson, the department's technology specialist. Rain fell on the equipment's protective case as he meticulously assembled it near their patrol vehicles. You're fortunate I was already in the field, Dawson stated, while calibrating the device. What precisely are we searching for? Anything unusual? Michael asked, looking back at Axel, who stayed in the same motionless state. He listed possibilities: people concealing themselves, surprising heat signatures, structural irregularities, anything that could account for Axel's reaction. Dawson agreed, lifting the thermal viewer to survey the alley. That's strange, he said softly, modifying the device's settings. I'm detecting cold areas alternating with warm areas further into the alley, which isn't typical heat distribution. The three officers proceeded cautiously, with Dawson consistently observing the thermal imaging device. Approximately 60 feet into the alley, the scanner detected a notable temperature difference close to the ground. At that point, Dawson indicated a section of wall partly hidden by a dumpster. He noted that area displayed an unusual thermal pattern, showing cold spots that were unexpected. Michael then shone his flashlight to the spot Dawson had shown. Initially, it seemed like a standard section of the building's foundation. However, a more careful look showed slight variations. The bricks didn't align with the primary wall's design, and a narrow line indicated what seemed to be a maintenance entrance. That's not documented in any of the building plans I've reviewed, Mercer stated, shifting the dumpster to gain a clearer perspective. And look at this. The beam of his flashlight revealed new scuff marks on the ground, indicating the recent movement of the large dumpster. The maintenance door's lock displayed indications of being forced, and the settled dust had been disrupted. Michael noticed something additional. A small symbol was etched into the metal frame of the door. It wasn't graffiti, but rather a carefully and deliberately created design. A circle encompassed a stylized eye with emanating lines. "We need to document this," he stated, taking photos with his department-issued phone, "and to call in additional units. Dispatch, we've located a concealed entrance showing signs of recent activity, requesting Detective Division and additional backup for further investigation. Copy that, Unit 17. Detective Division notified. Be advised, Detective Wright is responding personally." Detective Marcus Wright arrived 20 minutes later, his weathered face serious beneath the brim of a rain-speckled fedora. Wright, at the age of 53, held legendary status within the department. His 25 years of experience had fostered a nearly uncanny knack for linking seemingly unrelated pieces of evidence. "I've witnessed this previously," Wright stated softly, gesturing above the carving without making contact. "3 cases within the past year, all related to trafficking activities. These are highly developed operations. The warrants have been approved. We are proceeding with complete tactical authorization. Drawing on patterns from comparable operations, this entrance probably connects to a tunnel system situated under the historic district. Several of these buildings originate from the 1890s, and the subterranean network was substantial, largely lost to memory until criminals located it again. The maintenance door gave way to specialized entry tools, exposing a confined stairwell leading downwards into darkness. A stale odor of aged brick and motionless air rose from below. Wright instructed Reeves, "Your partner remains here with Torres." Given his reaction, he added, "I don't want to risk." He was interrupted by Axel's sudden movement. After almost an hour of complete immobility, the shepherd padded forward, pausing at the entrance to the stairwell. His earlier fear appeared transformed into determined purpose. "I believe he wants to lead," Michael said, surprised by the change. Wright considered this. "Your call, officer. You know your partner best." The initial descent was spearheaded by Axel, with Michael, Wright, and 4 other officers following. Their flashlights revealed a passage that had undergone recent renovations. The original brick walls were reinforced with contemporary metal supports, and electrical conduit was installed along the ceiling, while the floor had been cleared of any obstructions. "Someone has invested resources here," Wright noted. "These aren't just casual trespassers." The passage stretched approximately 100 yards before widening into a more spacious area displaying evidence of recent use. Sleeping bags were carefully arranged against one wall. A portable generator remained still in the corner. Particularly unsettling were the restraints secured to another wall, several sets designed to accommodate various wrist sizes. Axel proceeded deliberately around the chamber, his nose working continuously, then centered his attention on a metal footlocker located beneath a temporary table. Michael carefully opened the container, revealing dozens of passports, ID cards, and personal effects. He reported, leafing through the documents, that they bore different names and nationalities, but the individuals appeared to be of similar ages, mostly late teens and early 20s. Wright examined a detailed map pinned to the wall. "Look at this," he said. It displayed the entire tunnel network with connections to at least 6 buildings above. They were utilizing the old bootlegger routes from Prohibition, supplemented by some newer additions. Axel stiffened again, turning toward one of the 3 tunnel entrances extending from the main chamber. This was a posture of readiness, unlike his previous stillness, that Michael recognized. The dog had identified something particular. "He's detected something," Michael told the others, drawing his weapon. "Fresh scent, I'm guessing." "Which tunnel?" Wright asked, moving to stand beside him. "The eastern one," Michael replied, referencing his position. Wright checked the map. "That leads toward the river. Approximately 200 yards ahead lies a significant intersection, branching into several paths." The detective swiftly decided, "We have sufficient resources for a complete operational deployment. I'm requesting tactical teams to secure the alternative access points." He pointed out several locations on the map. "Are we proceeding?" Michael inquired, observing Axel's growing anticipation. Wright nodded gravely. "Your partner reports the presence of something or someone newly arrived in that tunnel. Whether they were victims or suspects, action was necessary, and they weren't delaying." Axel guided them further into the tunnel system. His previous uncertainty vanished. The tunnel then led to a more expansive, roughly circular chamber, with 5 passages extending outwards, resembling spokes on a wheel. "We are directly under the Westmoreland building," Wright stated, checking a compact GPS device. The former bank, dating back to the 1920s and now converted into luxury apartments, provided a perfect cover. Residents were constantly coming and going at all hours, and no one questioned deliveries or service visits. Axel circled the chamber, his nose working overtime, before settling precisely between 2 of the outgoing tunnels. This alert posture indicated he had found what he was searching for, but could not pinpoint a specific location. Both passages Michael interpreted with the sense originating from both directions. Wright divided their small team. "Mercer, you and Jefferson proceed along the right passage with Reeves and Axel. Henderson and I will take the left, maintain radio contact every 2 minutes, and initiate an immediate call if you discover anything." The passage gradually widened again, indicating signs of more extensive renovation. After approximately 100 yards, they arrived at another chamber, this one clearly designed for human occupation. This room differed from the initial one they found. It had been transformed into a regulated environment. Sections separated by lockable doors ran along one wall. A complex computer system was situated on another. Filing cabinets, a medical examination table, and recording devices finished the unsettling display. "Jesus," Mercer said, observing the scene. "What the heck is this place?" Michael remained silent, observing as Axel carefully examined the room, indicating particular cabinets and locations. Following his partner's direction, Michael located several passports and identification papers, each bearing different names but featuring identical photographs. Even more unsettling were the medical records, containing detailed examinations, blood analysis, and psychological evaluations. "They're manipulating people here," Michael stated at last, the weight of realization dawning on him. "Assessing them, establishing new identities, and readying them for the future." Jefferson had opened one of the file cabinets. "Sir, you need to see this." The drawer held numerous folders, each marked with a name, date, and destination code. Affixed to each file was a photograph of a young person, most appearing frightened, disoriented, or unnaturally sedated. "This isn't just trafficking," Wright stated from the doorway, having rejoined them after exploring the other passage. "This was a complex operation." He displayed a leather-bound journal. Financial records were discovered in the other chamber, revealing millions of dollars in transactions. Axel persisted in his careful examination of the chamber, finally settling in front of a metal door located at the far end of the room. Another guarded location. This door differed from those previously found. It was heavier, secured with a modern electronic lock instead of a traditional deadbolt. "There are people behind that door," Michael said, moving to join his partner. Wright examined the lock system. "High-end security. They're keeping something valuable in there." "Or someone," Mercer added. The detective pulled a specialized electronic bypass tool from his tactical vest. "Standard override should work. Everyone ready? We don't know what's on the other side." Weapons drawn, the officers positioned themselves as Wright bypassed the security system. With a pneumatic hiss, the substantial door swung open, presenting a striking difference from the functional areas seen before. The room beyond enjoyed climate control and featured costly leather sofas, antique rugs, and modern artwork. A bar was situated in one corner, filled with high-end spirits. A large window seemed to dominate one wall, although the area visible through it was presently unlit. Wright approached a control panel located close to the viewing window. It wasn't a club, it was an auction house. He activated a button, revealing the space beyond the glass. The connected room held a small stage, encircled by theater-style seating accommodating roughly 20 people. Multiple camera angles were covered by mounted cameras, and a podium was positioned at the stage's center. "They're selling them," Michael stated, the words tasting like bile in his mouth, "selling people to the highest bidder." Axel maintained his alert posture. Without a doubt, his focus had heightened, his gaze moving from the auction room to a second door located at the far end of the VIP lounge. This second door opened into a hallway containing 6 rooms extending from it. Each room was compact, furnished with just a bed and minimal amenities. 5 remained unoccupied, but the 6th, call medical now, Michael instructed as he stepped into the last room. 3 people rested on thin mattresses, 2 young women and a boy who appeared to be no older than 14. All were unconscious, but alive, with intravenous lines connected to their arms from medical bags suspended on portable stands. Sedated, Wright observed, verifying one woman's pulse. The pulse was strong and steady. They would remain under sedation until transport or, he looked back towards the auction room, his expression tightening until they were sold. Michael heard updates from the tactical teams through his radio as they secured additional access points within the underground network. Early information showed that at least 2 suspects were caught attempting to escape via a service exit 4 blocks away. The medical team had just reached the 3 victims to provide care when Axel abruptly stood up, fur bristling. This was not his warning for discovering evidence or even sensing a concealed individual. This served as the initial response, a consequence of an urgent danger. Prior to any action, Axel rapidly entered an unmapped tunnel, his speed requiring Michael to run to maintain visual contact. "Axel, wait," he called, drawing his weapon while running. Correct, potential suspects were in motion. The tunnel made a sharp turn, dividing into smaller passages that indicated recent activity. Michael listened for Mercer and Wright's footsteps as they followed, the sounds bouncing off the walls of the underground maze, but his attention stayed fixed on Axel's quickly fading figure in front. The shepherd moved through the twisting passages with steadfast confidence, making turns without pause. Ahead, Axel's barking resonated back to them, shifting from the controlled quiet of tracking to the sharp warning that indicated he had trapped his target. The passage ended with a rough wooden staircase ascending to a trapdoor. Axel stood at the foot of the stairs, intently observing the ceiling, barking with great force. The trapdoor above them moved slightly, revealing a narrow beam of faint light around its perimeter. Axel's barking grew louder. Rather than opening completely, the trapdoor shut abruptly, accompanied by the noise of a substantial object being pulled across its surface from above. The sound of hurried footsteps faded, accompanied by worried voices. "They're running." Michael began climbing the stairs, but Wright seized his arm. "Wait," he cautioned. "They could be setting a trap." Simultaneously, a quiet electronic beep came from above, followed by the noticeable hiss of gas being emitted. "Back," Wright commanded. "Everyone evacuate this area. Immediately." They retreated, just as a poisonous cloud started to leak through the spaces around the trapdoor. Axel guided them to a point 30 yards behind, where the air was still clean. "CS gas likely," Wright stated. "They're attempting to impede our progress." Jefferson's radio emitted static. The perimeter team was reporting activity at the Sentinel building. 2 suspects were observed leaving through the loading dock, proceeding east on foot. Michael, without awaiting verification, followed his partner, relying on Axel's judgment instead of conventional reasoning. The constricted passage appeared to twist unexpectedly, scarcely wide enough for the officers to pass through in sections, yet it kept a consistent diagonal path. "Clever dog," Wright observed as they reached a broader passage that rose sharply upward. "This has to be an original bootlegger route, not documented on any of the current maps." The passage ended at a corroded iron ladder, leading to a round hatch above. Michael ascended first, exerting force against the substantial cover. The mechanism resisted briefly before yielding with a groan of protest, exposing the interior of what appeared to be an abandoned mechanical room. "We're in the basement of Arlington Place," he reported back, recognizing the distinctive marble flooring visible through a partially open door that's directly across from the Sentinel building. They moved swiftly through the deserted building. Following Axel's silent guidance, the dog moved quickly from one puddle to the next. Michael observed water splashes mirroring the rhythm of running footsteps that had rippled the standing water. They arrived on Eastman Street just in time to witness 2 individuals sprint across the road, 2 blocks distant, and vanish into the entrance of a parking garage. "That's them," Michael exclaimed, starting to run with Axel leading the way. "Dispatch. Suspects are entering the Westover parking structure from the Eastman Street side." On the 3rd level, Axel abruptly decreased his speed, assuming a stalking stance. Just around the bend of the ramp, obscured somewhat by a support column, two men were working intensely at a laptop computer linked to a small portable device. Documents and hard drives were strewn about, and one was carefully inserting papers into a handheld shredder. "Police, don't move," Wright announced, appearing with his weapon raised. The younger of the two men quickly raised his hands, his face paling, while the older one moved to retrieve something from under his jacket. Axel responded immediately, swiftly moving across the space with intense focus. Before the man could finish his action, the shepherd secured the suspect's wrist with a firm bite, applying the necessary pressure to restrain him without causing significant harm. "Weapon," Michael alerted, observing the weapon that had fallen from the suspect's hand. Within seconds, both men were restrained face down on the concrete with their hands zip-tied behind them. The younger one had already begun speaking, his words pouring out in a frantic attempt to distance himself from his companion. "I just handle the tech," he insisted. "I set up the auction software, maintain the network. I never touched any of the merchandise. The people. It was all Kirsch's operation." The processing center located under Portland's historic district transformed into the city's most extensive crime scene in recent history. Over 3 days, teams of forensic specialists meticulously cataloged evidence, documented the facility's layout, and collected DNA samples, which ultimately aided in identifying numerous victims who had previously passed through the operation. The level of sophistication was particularly unsettling, Wright noted during a short respite. "The majority of trafficking operations we disrupt are spontaneous and lack organization. This operation, however, functions similarly to a Fortune 500 company, exhibiting a corporate structure, quality control measures, and customer service protocols. The victims were regarded as commodities, possessing defined specifications and warranties. The 5 rescued victims were transferred to a specialized trauma center, where medical professionals experienced in trafficking cases are working to stabilize them physically while initiating the significantly longer process of psychological recovery." Wright told Michael that the youngest one was speaking. Just briefly, but it provided a timeline. She had been abducted 6 days ago in Seattle, survived the initial processing, but hadn't yet appeared in their auction catalog. The evidence, obtained from the suspect's laptop, proved to be even more valuable than expected. The documents held more than just customer details and financial data. They included communication records connecting the Portland operation to related sites in Vancouver, San Francisco, and extending eastward to Chicago. "International task forces are already targeting 3 locations based on our intelligence," Wright stated. "The plan involves coordinated raids and simultaneous action to avoid alerting any warning systems." Regarding the symbol discovered, the eye with the radiating lines, Wright confirmed that it represents their branding. "This pattern has emerged in previous instances, though we didn't grasp its meaning at the time. We now recognize it as a marker for their high-end product range, a designation they use, not one I would apply." His reaction clearly showed his displeasure. Each line signifies a distinct service they provide. The largest operations possess the highest number of lines. The one discovered had 7, the greatest number we've ever recorded. 1 week later, Michael and Axel resumed their standard patrol duties. The officer's path intentionally steered clear of the historic district, where the investigation persisted behind police barriers and under the observation of federal agents. Chief Bennett had recognized their requirement to resume a regular routine following the heightened stress of the previous week. The morning presented crisp, clear conditions. Autumn sunlight illuminated Portland's trees with a golden hue as they patrolled their beat through Cathedral Park. Axel proceeded with his characteristic disciplined precision, yet Michael observed a slight alteration in his partner, possibly a greater alertness or a stronger trust in his own intuition. They halted close to the St. John's Bridge, its Gothic arches rising above the Willamette River. Michael released Axel's leash, granting him a short respite in the grass while remaining vigilant about their environment. "You change things, he said softly to the shepherd. "It wasn't just concerning those 5 we located, but for hundreds more. They would never meet." Axel looked up at him with those intelligent amber eyes that sometimes seemed to understand far more than any animal should. The case had already resulted in coordinated raids in 3 cities, the rescue of 17 additional victims, and the identification of over 40 individuals involved in the trafficking network. Yesterday, Wright had informed me that the International Task Force was planning operations in 6 countries, utilizing evidence obtained from the Portland facility. It was all a consequence of my intervention in that alley, Michael reflected, observing as Axel's ears rotated to follow a passing jogger. It stemmed from my recognizing something amiss and choosing to speak out. Continuing their patrol, Michael reflected on the remarkable connection that has grown between humans and dogs throughout millennia of evolution. What insights from the past understood the value in these animals, not solely as hunters or guardians, but as companions capable of noticing details that humans might overlook. Have you ever felt that an animal perceived something beyond your own awareness? How do dogs such as Axel seem to detect threats that humans miss? We welcome your stories and opinions in the comments below. Do you think the connection between canine officers and their handlers extends past training, potentially reaching a level beyond our complete understanding? Please share your thoughts with our community. If this story of Axel's extraordinary discovery moved you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another tale of remarkable canine heroes. Share this video with anyone who appreciates the incredible capabilities of working dogs and the special humans who partner with them. Check out our previous canine stories appearing on your screen now, and we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time with another brand new video.